So when I was a kid, we were still allowed to play dangerous games in gym class. I remember getting pegged in the head with those red, heavy dodgeballs more than I can count. We used to play floor hockey with what the gym teachers would call soft pucks. They weren't soft. Nothing about them was soft. The only thing you could squeeze in the middle, but forget about the sides. When I played goalie and I remember getting hit with a slap shot to the chest, it was not soft, I could tell you that much. Well, one game that was on its way out of gym class at the time, but not quite yet, was Red Rover. I remember one rainy day, early November, we could no longer go outside for gym class, so we played Red Rover. Now, if you don't remember Red Rover, I'll remind you. Red Rover is one step behind a kickoff of a National Football League game. You know, they modified the kickoff, and I remember Bill Belichick famously saying, they're trying to eliminate the play. You know, they moved the kickoff to the 40-yard line so that, they just could stop ramming into each other. Notably because it's dangerous, but in gym class at this time, it was Tuesday. So one side of the gym is a group of kids forced to be put up as tribute for the Hunger Games. And the other side is a different group of kids forced to be put up as tribute for the Hunger Games. And the gym teacher sits on their throne to watch the Hunger Games for their amusement, only to intervene when inevitable injuries occur, which were often swift and painful. In fact, I think I've got the video clip of the very first game of Red Rover ever played. Let's take a look.
No son of Troy will ever submit to a foreign ruler.
And every son of Troy shall die.
Now you know who you're fighting.
So naturally, an elementary school phys ed teacher says, that's pretty cool. Maybe I could get the kids to do that without the weapons. Do that. And I can only imagine being a school nurse. Coming into work on that day, only to find out Red Rover was being played. 12% of the entire student body visits her office. She has to set up makeshift cots in the hallway like it's a wartime trauma unit, while the phys ed teacher laughs on his throne of amusement on the stage of the elementary school gymatorium. Well, as I wait for my turn to break through the wall of children on the other side, I watch my fellow students go down one by one like we're storming the gates of Normandy on D-Day. So what does any kid do when they're trying to survive this torment? Well, I'm scanning. Where's the competition here? I'm looking at the weakest link, find the smallest kids. Well, eventually I came upon what I believe to be the weak spot. There were two girls. They were smaller than most in the class, and they were locking hands together. They were previously untested, so I wasn't sure, but I thought, there's the vulnerability. So my name gets called, and I build up a head of steam. And just as I think I broke through, the next thing I know, I'm laying face up on the gym floor. And the gym teacher, normally laughing at the folly that's in front of him, genuinely was concerned for my welfare. Now, thankfully, I wasn't concussed, but I was thoroughly confused because I thought my method of deduction was flawless. So I said, "What happened?" And he said, "You hit the floor. That's what happened." And I said, "How?" Well, he said, "You picked the two competitive gymnasts in the class to try to break through." So, unbeknownst to me, both of these girls were trained on uneven bars, and so their grip strength was far beyond any normal elementary school kids. And so they're shorter, but they are just bundles of muscle. And these girls trained, and they worked hard in their sport. They were ready for a time like this to show all us kids what they had. And I most certainly was not. As well as I do, it's easy to rest on our laurels. A lot of time, heck, even most of the time, life can be busy, but it's usually routine. We get up, we work, we eat, we sleep. Hopefully, as believers, we read our Bibles and pray. But just as these girls were up for the challenge to clothesline this ruddy kid, will you be up for the next challenge you face? There are challenges that we decide to take on, and these can be exciting because we know the task that lies before us. Over the last few weeks, I have seen more graduation photos on social media than I could count. And many of these students continue to pursue their education. They go on. Some of them enter the workforce. Some of them are looking for jobs, navigating the challenges of a job search. And some of them have already landed jobs, are in the process of relocating or just building a home office if they're remote. But all of us have had decisions that we have to make in life. And we have road signs in our hearts and minds to navigate where we're going to go. And these tend to be exciting and uplifting. Knowing the decisions we can make in our lives will add value and they can be fruitful. We can reaffirm our self-confidence as we're navigating them. But then there are challenges that get thrust upon us when we least expect it. We're handed a pink slip a week before Christmas. We get bad news from a blood test. We find out our spouse cheated on us, or we suddenly lose a loved one in a car accident. All of these traumatic events result in a devastating sense of loss. Where would your faith be if you were presented with something insurmountable? What if something happened to you or a loved one so heartbreaking that the very gravitational pull of your life was turned upside down? Listen, no one enjoys talking about these things. And I don't like thinking about these things either. I'd rather be cracking dad jokes up here or telling you the stuff we all love to hear, fluff stuff. But I can tell you some of the deepest prayers and most incredible moves of God I've experienced is in the waiting room while a loved one is in emergency surgery. Or God's presence has been palpable when visiting bedside at a hospital, when we know that there are just hours left before someone goes home to be with the Lord. His Spirit can be omnipresent while grieving a broken marriage. My mom died of cancer in 2016. And in a hurry, I flew from Colorado Springs, where I served at a church, to New Jersey while she was on life support and in a medically induced coma at the hospital. My siblings and I had to make the decision to take her off life support. And through the collective tears of all four of us, we prayed, we hugged, we held hands, and we remembered her life together as she was sedated with a ventilator breathing for her. And when they removed her from life support, though they told us that she only had hours left to live, like Lazarus from the dead, we were able to talk, laugh, sing, and reminisce with her. And just as Jesus' body laid in the tomb for 3 days we had our mom there in right mind and body, fully alert, fully aware, alive, and in front of us. Present for us to share all the things we needed to share, to remind her that we loved her, and for her to remind us she loved us. They were some of the sweetest times we had ever had together as a family. And we all know grieving is hard. We knew what the final outcome would be, though, and having the knowledge that closure would come in some ways makes it more manageable. But in grief, when dealing with circumstances in which we will not know the outcome, can't know the outcome, we need to make multiple decisions and gear up for battle. That's where the crisis of faith can come in. Possible tragedy, but unknowable outcomes. That's where much of the deepest wrestling lies. So I need to ask you today, if something traumatic were to happen in your life, coming out of it, would you be able to get better, or would you just get bitter? Would your current faith experience pull you through? Would you allow the pain to become a teacher? Or would you get angry and dissociate? Would you run from God and allow bitterness and resentment to harden your heart? Friends of mine, Adam and Lauren, they have graciously given me permission to share their story of their son's heroic battle with cancer. And I had a chance to sit down with them Thursday and get their perspective on their handling this battle. Most importantly, to hear how their faith has weathered the storm as they fought this battle as a family. and they were kind enough to sit down with me for an interview, thankfully knowing today that their son has been healed in this battle. Would you watch?
Levi started having some leg pain, minor leg pain. He was 8 years old, and we just kind of wrote it off as growing pains. But it continued. It lasted for a while. It started affecting his walk, and he was limping a little bit. And so at that, we thought we should probably get him checked out. So I called, and it was a little bit before Christmas, and they said, "Can you wait till after Christmas?" I said, "Oh yeah, sure. Sure, it's nothing, so we can wait." So in January 8th, we went to just his pediatric doctor, and they checked him out, and they couldn't really find what was wrong, and agreed that it was probably growing pains. Right before we left, she said, "Well, hold on a second, lay down on the table." This huge mass protruded from his stomach area.
I was at work, and she had contacted me, and it was that immediate feeling of I needed to be there, and so everything else dropped away. All we could focus on is, well, this is happening now. Okay, chemo's happening now. Oh, all right. Now he's getting this procedure. This is having to be done, or it's all we could handle.
Levi was 8 at the time, and he was private, so I didn't really see him often.
It was winter.
Yeah.
So he was covered in layers usually, and it was to see it.
Yeah. And Levi said he had never seen it before either. So they sent us right over to the hospital where they did an ultrasound. And they said to us, "We can deal with this here, but you should probably head to Hershey." I texted a ton of people on the way there saying this was found. We're heading over to Hershey to get it checked out. Pray. The next day he started chemo. January of 2020 is when he was diagnosed. In August of 2020, he did his last chemo. Then he did some additional radiation in September. He got his scans in November to see if it had worked. They were inconclusive, so he had surgery in December to have it removed, where they were able to then see that there was no more cancerous cells in it. And then January 7th of 2021, so almost a year to the date of this starting, he had surgery to have his port removed. So It was 364 days. I was in denial initially. When I was texting people on the way to the hospital, I fully expected that when we got there, it would all have been a mistake, or it would be gone miraculously or something. I never really believed that a cancer diagnosis would come.
You go into parenting and you don't assume cancer is going to be part of it. But once it is, it's like, well, could one of our children die? And so that was a big part of the crisis, is at what point does God intervene and stop what's happening? And fortunately for us, he did, where we suffered for a horrifying year, but now it's this crazy past nightmare where nothing really came of it. He's fine. We're still here. We still believe in God. But at the time, we weren't sure what the future was going to hold as far as this temporal life goes.
There were times for sure when I was angry at God. I remember the first time I left the hospital, because when we went in the hospital, they had a really hard time managing his pain. And we were there for 3.5 weeks, and he stopped walking. Since we were children, we have had a foundation just secure in the Lord and in the promises from his scriptures. And we clung to that during this difficult time. also the people around us. We had so many people praying for us and reaching out to us, and seeing God do just amazing things through his people. I mean, as simple as when Levi was in surgery for the first time, we were lost in Hershey Hospital, and we ran into our life group leader, who we had no idea was there. And just being able to hug him and see him and pray with him, just little things like that, that all along the way, God kept showing us that he was with us. Yeah, we were going through something terrible and it wasn't easy, but he had not left us. Family, friends, just godly people all around, they showed up. And they kept showing up. We didn't always ask them to. They showed up. They would just take care of stuff. I know at one point both our cars were broken down in the parking garage, and guys showed up and they were like, "We're going to take care of it." What do you mean you're going to we'll take care of it? You're worrying about enough. Don't worry about this. And it was vehicles, food. Our well at one point stopped working, and some guys came over and fixed our well free of charge, so we didn't have to think about it or deal with it. Just God kept providing in so many different ways, different organizations, fundraisers that people did. Yeah. Oh yeah. I would tell myself that I'm stronger in my faith than I give myself credit for. I had seen previously other people go through difficult times and seen their faith grow. And I often thought to myself, I don't understand how that happens. I remember seeing a friend just lost their child, and she was praising the Lord. And I was like, you either have super faith that I'm not capable of, or you're lying. Like, there's just no way you can worship the Lord in this circumstance as a normal person. But when you put it all into his hands, he gives you the peace that you need. He gives you the comfort. It is supernatural. And so I would tell myself, like, you have the faith, just keep it in the Lord, and he will take care of you and give you the peace and comfort you need when you need it. Stay in God's word and don't disconnect. I know for me, I went through the Psalms and wrote it out, like which of those I could be praying right now. And I kept going back to them. And with the people that were showing up, like, I'm not a huge fan of all the conversations or all of that, but I didn't want to shy away from it when it was so apparent that people wanted to love on me and be there for me. And so we set ourselves aside and humbly accepted a whole lot of stuff we could never pay back. And isn't that what the Christian life is? Sometimes we get to give and sometimes we get to receive, but it's all about Jesus. I once heard it said that everyone's either about to go into a trial, in a trial, or just coming out of a trial. It's important that you are shoring up your faith in these moments when you're not in a trial. So when you are and life gets crazy, you can rely on what you know and what you've learned, and just trust in that and hold dear to the scriptures and the promises that God's made.
Yeah, when you think of it, please pray for Levi. He goes in for yearly scans and checkups due to the aggressive treatments that they've had to use for him to be able to get rid of that cancer. But just pray for Levi as you can. But as you can see here, God can use the trials that we face to actually help us grow our faith deeper. And trials do not have to become tragedies. You can have a resilient faith rooted in the face of pain and adversity. And we don't ask for these things to come our way, of course. But it's wise for us to ask for more faith so that we can be balanced and ready in the face of our battles. You know, today's gospel reading teaches us that our faith matters. Our faith can change the outcome. Jesus asked the boy's father, "How long has he been like this?" "From childhood," he answered. "And it has often thrown him into fire or water to kill him. But if you can do anything, take pity on us and help us." "If you can," said Jesus, "everything is possible for the one who believes." And immediately the boy's father exclaimed, "I do believe. Help me overcome my unbelief." Can you join that boy's father today and ask God to increase your faith? Can you ask him to help you to overcome your unbelief? Remember what Jesus says later. You know, the disciples asked him why they couldn't drive out the spirit within the boy, and he said, this kind of spirit can only come out by prayer. Reread the text. What prayer? There is no prayer. There's just dialogue. But the prayer Jesus was talking about was this man's plea: help me overcome my unbelief. Your faith matters. When you are confronted with a battle, your faith can make the difference. James 1, 2-4 says, "Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything." And notice James doesn't say pray for trials, you know, but he says consider it pure joy whenever you do face them. The trials are meant for our good, and trials do not have to become tragedies. Everything we deal with in life first passes through the hand of God. And guys, today this is an unpopular position. We want to sugarcoat God. And we want to say he works, how he works. We want to discuss how he works, but we don't want to talk about what he does in order to help us through these trials. But there's a reason for everything we children can face. We can allow these hurts to make us bitter, or we can allow them to make us better. And remember when Jesus says in Matthew 7, which of you, if your son asks for bread, will give him a stone? Or if he asks for a fish, will give him a snake? If you then, though you are evil, know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more will your Father in heaven give good gifts to those who ask him? Remember Charlie Brown? What's Charlie Brown's favorite saying when things don't go his way? Good grief. Good grief. It's true. Grief can be for our good. You probably didn't know Charlie Brown was a philosopher. But he is. He's a darn good one at that. And these next couple weeks, we're going to be looking at ways in which you and I can be better equipped to handle grief. You know the old adage, an ounce of prevention equals a pound of cure. And we need this. We all need a strengthening of our faith. So next week, we're going to take a look at the life of Job. All that he went through was intended by God for Job's good. And all was done for Job's faith to increase. And the following week, we're going to talk about how important it is to have a strong community around us. You heard Adam and Lauren, and one of the biggest things that they experienced through this was the love of the people of God. And together we can face much more than if we were alone. We need community around us to help us weather those storms that we face. So being in a church like this, there are many people who can help walk with you through whatever you're facing. But it's important that we don't let ourselves be strangers. So remember that the role the faith has in your life. It's a bulwark against adversity. And your faith matters, and it can change the outcome of anything you face. Even as you work through those challenges, God can make you better if you don't grow bitter, and if you allow him to teach you through them. I want to encourage you in a couple ways as we close here this morning. One, would you ask God to increase your faith now, before a trial hits? Ask him to reveal himself more deeply in your life as the King of Kings and Lord of Lords. He's greater than anything you and I face. And it's important to recognize it now so you're ready to lean on him later when you need him. And two, would you have a spiritual conversation this week with someone you know who has overcome a trial, a traumatic event, a death of a loved one, addiction, illness, and they've been able to come out the other side with their faith intact? Ask them how they grew because of it, or how God responded to their stress in the midst of it. If we do these things, we can be prepared for anything and everything that comes our way. God wants you strong, anchored in him, lacking nothing, so we can also be an anchor for those around us in their trials as well.